Have you ever actually stopped to wonder just how much unseen data is quietly dictating your everyday life? I mean, think about it. From the digital footprints we leave when we're just online shopping, to literally walking down the street in our own neighborhoods, right up to the moment we cast a ballot. Our private lives are constantly being tracked, analyzed, and, in many cases, weaponized to build what feels like this massive, modern algorithmic empire. So, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into a really massive, overarching theme that connects some of the most high stakes developments happening right now. We're talking about the rapidly collapsing boundary between public information and our private lives. We're going to break down exactly how our digital rights, our personal privacy, and even our physical spaces are fundamentally being reshaped as we speak. Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the surveillance pricing battle. Then we'll look at escalating immigration enforcement, move on to scrutinizing the voter rolls, and finally wrap things up with the butterfly brawl.
Part 1. The Surveillance Pricing Battle.
All right, so your personal data is actively being used right now to target your wallet through this ecosystem called surveillance pricing. Now, according to the FTC and various lawmakers, retailers and data middlemen are using AI to harvest these absolutely massive consumer dossiers. Basically, by tracking your location, what kind of device you're using, your browsing history, honestly, even your mouse movements, algorithms are estimating your perceived willingness to pay. So, if the system flags you as, say, living in an affluent zip code, or maybe it just notices you're really desperate for a specific product, well, you could literally be charged more than the person sitting right next to you. Crazy, right? And the scale of this whole thing is just staggering. We're talking $3.8 billion, according to a recent White House study. That is the estimated cost of price-fixing algorithms for apartment renters alone in 2023. To put that on a micro level, this algorithmic pricing means renters down in San Diego are paying about $99 more every single month. Up in San Francisco, it's about $62 more. And as the Electronic Frontier Foundation has pointed out, these models frequently end up pushing higher costs specifically onto low-income and non-white communities. Naturally, this has sparked a massive, high-stakes legislative battle over who actually controls the value of your data. So on the consumer protection side of things, you have California Assembly Bill 2564, which is aiming to just outright ban surveillance pricing. The goal there is to stop these consumer dossiers from artificially inflating the cost of basic goods. But countering this is the business perspective, championed by the California Chamber of Commerce. Now, they argue that this bill creates some really massive litigation risks, and that it could inadvertently penalize businesses for just offering basic consumer-friendly discounts or loyalty programs.
Section 2. Escalating Immigration Enforcement.
Now, we're not just seeing this kind of tracking online, it is actively building in the physical world too. There's a sweeping new report out by the ACLU titled Agents of Chaos and Cruelty, and it examines what they call the new normal under a national deportation policing force that has swelled to over 50,000 agents. The ACLU documented this extensive use of federal agents driving unmarked vehicles, wearing masks, and conducting collateral arrests of American citizens. And all of this makes it incredibly difficult for communities to even know who is operating in their own neighborhoods. Just to really ground this systemic issue in reality, the report details some incredibly high-stakes arrests happening in totally private spaces, like agents literally using tasers in residential driveways. There's one specific finding from Florida where a mother was detained by ICE during what was supposed to be a routine, sudden check-in appointment. 2 days later, she was deported. She was immediately separated from her nursing 1-year-old U.S. citizen daughter, who was right there at the check-in with her. The trauma of this separation was reportedly so severe that the baby actually had to be hospitalized. Now, zooming out from that, the sheer scale here is massive. The ACLU documented 624 enforcement actions happening in just sites of everyday daily life. We're talking grocery stores, bus stops, local neighborhood streets, and they recorded over 1,200 civil rights abuses. This dragnet has swept up legal residents and citizens alike. They noted 155 U.S. citizens were detained or targeted, alongside 49 documented incidents happening near schools, which actually prompted school lockdowns. Critics are strongly arguing that these expanded enforcement tactics are essentially transforming our everyday communal spaces into high-stress zones. And that stress extends very deeply into the detention system itself. Look at the numbers. In 2024, there was one reported death by suicide in ICE detention. But between January 2025 and January 2026, that number spiked to 7. Human Rights Watch explicitly links this sharp rise to a 77% increase in the overall detainee population. They point to systematic failures, really poor facility conditions and severe medical neglect happening within this rapidly expanding infrastructure.
Okay, segment 3, scrutinizing the voter rolls.
Shifting gears now from physical enforcement over to the political sphere, this federal data tracking is now squarely meeting the ballot box. Back in March 2026, the administration issued Executive Order 14399. It's titled Ensuring Citizenship Verification and Integrity in Federal Elections. Now, the stated goal here is to enhance election integrity, specifically taking aim at mail-in voting, and it does this by directing federal agencies to compile data to verify voter eligibility.
So, let's walk through how this actually works. It's a 3-step process. First, the Department of Homeland Security and the Social Security Administration pull together data from naturalization and citizenship records. Second, all that data gets bundled into what they're calling confirmed citizen lists, which are then transmitted to individual states. Finally, step 3, the states are expected to review these lists 60 days before federal elections. Now, that might sound straightforward in theory, but in practice, it has sparked an absolute legal showdown over states' rights and just the raw accuracy of the data.
In fact, this conflict has escalated all the way to the Supreme Court. Critics, along with the respondent states, are arguing that these federal databases are, in their words, necessarily incomplete. They're prone to pretty basic errors from things like simple name changes or people moving across state lines. As noted in a district court application, opponents are warning that this executive order essentially operates as a coercive tool. They allege it attempts to intimidate local election officials with the literal threat of criminal prosecution if they issue ballots to individuals who don't happen to show up on these federal lists.
Part 4. The Butterfly Brawl.
All right, after covering some really heavy systemic issues today, we are completely shifting gears for a much-needed palate cleanser. We're going to look at some local community resilience. On August 22nd, 2026, the Butterfly Brawl makes its return to the iconic Santa Monica Pier. This event is promoted by Fightbook and Bash Boxing, and it's this spectacular fusion of elite boxing and world-class entertainment. But honestly, the absolute best part? Every single net ticket proceed goes directly to benefit Teen Cancer America. It is just this vibrant, localized, human spectacle right out there in the open air. Mark Habibi, the founder of Fightbook, I think really hit the nail on the head regarding the heart of this event. He said, "It's a chance for our community to come together and make a real difference." And, when you contrast that with the unseen algorithms secretly hiking up our rent, or unmarked vehicles patrolling neighborhoods, or massive federal databases scrutinizing the voter rolls, an event like the Butterfly Brawl really stands out, doesn't it? It's tangible, it is human-centric action happening openly in the community, not hidden behind a screen or a mask. Which really leaves us with a final, I think, pretty provocative thought to chew on. As our private spheres continue to shrink and our lives become more and more defined by algorithmic control and federal tracking, just how vital is it that we protect these public, community-driven spectacles? Do these local, undeniably human moments actually become acts of resilience in the digital age? Well, I will leave that for you to decide. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll catch you next time.